Hi, welcome to SFG Cards and Craft. Today I'm actually going to demonstrate how I managed to use the Stampendous Jumbo Hydrangea garden set showing there on the screen at the moment. I've had some trouble with this stamp set trying to get it to look good, but I've finally come up with a way to use it. I'm also using, just to cut the panel that I'm doing this on, using this cross-stitched one on the outside I'm indicating there. So Fancy Creative Cuts by Mama Elephant. Using VersaMark ink, which is a clear sticky gluey type ink, embossing powder, which is used with the glue ink, and 4 colours. I can't even see what colours they are, sorry, but really any blues or greens, and also the picked raspberry, so any of the pale blues or greens would actually do the same as what I'm doing here, because I'm not actually using blue, I'm mixing it with the pink to become like a light purple. As the hydrangeas, they come in a variety of different pinks, blues, purples. You can even get a white, which has sort of got a greenish tint to it, but I'm only showing the pinks and the purples here today, although I have done a card with the blues. These are just showing that I've already stamped and put the heat set, the white embossing powder on. Okay, now what I'm going to be doing here is I'm just using a number 4 Art Basics brush, but in hindsight I probably could have used a number 6, but it doesn't really matter as long as you can actually get the water to fill in. I'm using quite a good amount of water to do this style of painting, which is pretty much, I guess, watercolor style. I've never really done watercolor painting as the true watercolor artist style before. This is probably as close as I've ever got, but I've never actually had any formal instructions on how to do it, so I'm just assuming that this is how it's done, of course without the embossing powder already there. So the embossing powder actually works really well. It's basically it stops the water and the colours from going over to the next area, to the next petal. So instead, with the watercolor, instead of working on petals or flowers individually that are set aside from each other apart, with this you can actually work on the flower directly next to it while the other one's still wet, because of the embossing powder's there. It actually stops the water and the colour flowing over into the next flower or petal, whatever you're working on, or leaf at the time. Just speeding it up here a little bit because it is fairly long-winded in doing this whole flower. I've had some problems with this stamp set trying to make it look good, and I've done so many times and I've kept going back to it. I sort of give up on it for a little while and keep going back to it, and finally I actually saw Sandy Elnock did not the same stamp set but a smaller stamp set, one with very fine lines on it, and I sent her a message asking her if she's got this stamp set, could she please show us how she would do it, because she does a lot of watercolor painting, and to see if, because I was just getting so frustrated with it, not knowing how to go about doing it. And after I sent the message, another lady sent me a message back saying that she was having the same problems as I was having. So I sort of put my thinking cap on and sort of, this is what I've come up with, was doing it this way, and I think the end result is quite good. Certainly better than what I had been doing before. Before I wasn't actually using the embossing powder, I was just stamping it on and trying to use the watercolor, but it really didn't come out. It just came out like a big coloured massy blob, so I wasn't happy with it at all, and it sounds like the other lady that wrote me wasn't happy with hers either. I'm actually using a variety of colour, basically brush dipping, brush mixing is what it's called in the folk art anyway. I'm not sure what they call it in doing watercolours, but I'm brush mixing, dipping into the picked raspberry and then going into the broken china, I believe it is, that I've got there on the palette. It could be broken tumbled glass as well, I'm not sure which one I chose to use, but really it doesn't matter, it just depends on what sort of purpley shades you want, because I'm dipping into the picked raspberry and then also dipping the brush, just the tip of it, into the blue colour in some places. You'll see some of them more pink, some of them are more purple, and this is the colours that I'm actually getting. This is the reason why I'm working on one flower head at a time rather than just one petal at a time, because that way I can pretty much uniformly get the flower head, each flower head the same colour, all those petals on that same flower head, sorry, the same colour. If I was working on only one petal at a time and doing the dipping into the picked raspberry and then tipping into the whichever colour blue I've got, every flower petal would be a different shade. So doing it this way, at least I'm getting a fairly uniform shade across each flower head. That's the way I'm doing this anyway. So I don't know, maybe there is another way of doing it, but as I said, I'm not really able to do watercolouring at this stage. I've never really done the true watercolour. You'll notice also that I go back and put extra colour in there, so because there is a lot of water still sitting on the flower, and I just wanted to make it a little bit darker around the centre of the flower. And this is what I'm doing. I'm just putting that little bit of to make it look a little bit darker, I suppose, a bit of shading, I suppose you could call it. And with just dotting the few little dots of the darker colour in, it does, because of the water still being there, it does sort of tend to sort of spread out. It's like a capillary action, I guess you could say, and it sort of just smears out into while the water's still there. It just sort of spreads and makes that sort of shading sort of look. So that's all I'm doing here. I'm just sort of pushing the colour out at the moment. So I find that this is it's came out all right anyway. I was very happy with it in the end. Just a few more flowers to do now. As I said, it is a fairly long one, that's why I've speeded it up quite a lot. This original video was about 50 minutes long, and I've reduced it down to 18 minutes, so you can see I've actually speeded up a lot of it, cut some of it out here and there. I have actually done another case too. I'll show at the end here, one pink and one with the blues, where I've actually, instead of using just plain water, I've actually used the Ranger Perfect Pearls inner water, dissolved into the water, and I've just used that, just sprayed the water onto my palette. I haven't shown that on this one, but I've sprayed the water onto the palette, and using that pearlized water rather than clean original, like just ordinary water, I've actually used that, and it comes up with like a pearlized sort of look. It looks okay, but to be honest, I think it's a bit much, but I'll show that at the end here. And if you wanted to do it that way, you could probably do it that way as well, but I had to try it. It was the first time I'd ever tried the Perfect Pearls myself. So I thought, well, I've got them here. I bought them probably a month ago, and I'd never tried them, and I thought, well, I have to try them, so today is my chance to do it. So I did a couple of cards, a pink and a blue. They were my only blue one that I actually did, was the one with the pearlized water in it. Okay, I'm about to start on the leaves, and I've got a dirty spot on the leaf. I don't know what I did there. I think I might have dipped into the paint before I dipped into the water. Just filling up the leaf there again, the sections of each leaf with the water, same as on the petals. So that takes a little moment to do, so just bear with me here. The colours that I'm using, I think was Shabby Shutters, or it could have been Crushed Olive for the base colour, and then I come in with the Forest Moss for the darker colour. So this is the lighter colour of the two. I think it's Crushed Olive, I'm really not quite sure. But as I said before, you can actually use any shades of green, preferably one lighter and one darker, like I'm doing here. If you want to do the same sort of style of leaf, you could just use a solid single colour if you want, like just use the light or dark colour. But I think the result of using the two shades of green, the way I'm doing it here, come out quite good. So if you just see just a moment just how I've done it, basically what I do is I just dot in the light green and just pull it through the whole leaf. I'm dotting on the darker colour now, which is the Forest Moss in my case, and then I basically pull that down to halfway down into the lighter green, and that is still quite wet too. There's a lot of water on this leaf as well at the moment, and while it's still wet, I actually add some picked raspberry around the edge, but it's got to be done while the leaf is still wet, otherwise you won't get the same effect. You can't do all the leaves and then come back and put the picked raspberry on and expect to get the same result. Now, putting this picked raspberry on, because the leaf is still quite wet, you'll see it spreads up into the green and becomes sort of a brownish orangish colour, sort of almost autumn leaf tone colour. That's the reason I've chosen the picked raspberry to do this, because I think it looks quite good. I don't have a colour that's exactly like that. All my browns that I've got are not red looking. I haven't got all the full set of the Ranger ink, so I'm not sure if there's actually one of the distress inks that is that colour, but because I don't have it, I've actually chosen to use a Pick Raspberry. So I've actually speeded it up here just to get the other leaves, because I've got 4 leaves on here. Or this one's only a very small part of a leaf. I've masked out on the flower to actually put the leaves on, and the other 2 are actually half leaves as well, I guess you could say. But I do them all in the same way, where I put the light, then I put the dark roughly halfway down, and then around the edges I just put a little bit of the picked raspberry just to and you can see it there quite clearly, sort of with like a capillary action, just sort of sucking up into the green and mixing the pink and the green together, becomes sort of a reddish brown. It looks quite nice. It's an autumny tone. That's what I was going for when I actually chose those colours. The paper that I'm using, I'm not sure if I actually mentioned before, is actually a Canson watercolour paper, cold pressed, 185 grams. I would consider it probably, because of the price of it, it's reasonably priced, I would consider it probably more a student quality paper, but I find that what I do with it comes out quite good. With this, doing it like this with all this water on it, the panel does tend to buckle, but by the time it's dried, if you let it air dry and not force dry it with the heat gun, it tends to pretty much almost 100% straighten back out again. So which to me indicates that it must be a reasonably good quality paper. I have got cheap papers that once they get wet, they become like a blotter and it just stays out of shape. You just know what matter what you do, you cannot get it to go back into shape. But this one, you let it air dry, and I think that it is best for it to let it air dry rather than force dry it with a heat gun, and it seems to straighten out. When I've actually finished this, I think I didn't cut it. I think I show basically the buckle that there is in it with all the water that I've put on it. But as I said, it does pretty much straighten out later on, and I put plenty of tape on it anyway to make sure that it stays down. I think I put like 5 strips of tape, and my tape gun runs out. My ATG gun runs out at the end, so I have to refill it for the inside panel for this outside panel. But anyway, it's we're nearly there now. We're just on the last leaf here. So if you just bear with me for a little while, I did speed this up as much as I dare. I mean, I could have speeded it up more, but it would have been a very jumpy picture. And some people do like to watch the art of the painting of these things. So this is why I've left it all in. But we're almost there. I don't actually show painting the small flower. Originally I showed up the front at the beginning before I started painting. I showed a small piece of paper where I've got some of the flowers, single flowers stamped on it. I don't actually show the painting of that. So they're all done off screen and cut out off screen, because I'm only fussy cutting those, not actually using a die set, because I mentioned that I don't have a die set, even though I do think it is available, but I've never actually even asked about buying it. Okay, there's what it looks like. It's still very wet, and you can see how buckled it is there, but as I said, it does dry out and it does flatten out. Now I've come back here. I've already cut them out using the sellotape foam pads. They're like I don't know, probably about 2 or 3 millimeters high, 5 by 5 square, and I've got plenty on there so that if it is sent in the post, it won't sort of seem to crush down too much, I hope anyway, because I would like to send one of these to my sister at some point. She's just had her birthday recently, so it won't be for her birthday, but maybe next year. I'll hang on to one for next year. Maybe for my mother-in-law. So I'm trying to speed it up as much as I dare, but it's as I said, it gets too jumpy if I speed it up too fast. I'm only putting 5. I've cut 6, but I'm only putting 5 of these flowers on. And I'm trying to hurry here because I actually put a cake in the oven this morning and it was just about ready to come out at this time, so I was trying to get this done before the cake was coming out, so I was working as fast as I could so I didn't have to go off and get the cake out of the oven. I actually got up about 5 o'clock in the morning to do the recording on this. and just a dot of wet glue. That's Kudra, can't think of the name of it, Kudra something, craft glue, Kudra Crafts I think it's called, just because it's overhanging one of the other flowers. And snipping off the back just to straighten up those couple that are hanging over. And there's the panel finished. Okay, now I've chosen a pale pink. I actually went through my different colours that I've got there and chosen a pale pink to set this one on. I sort of went through looking at dark pinks and blues, and yeah, this is when my tape gun runs out. Oh, it is sticking on the front. This is a fairly new tape gun for me. I haven't had it for, oh, there it goes. So I didn't worry about trying to refill it on screen because I'm just not used to doing it. So I did it off screen. One of these days, maybe if I get really good at doing it, I might actually do a video on how to do it, because I had some trouble. Even though I've done it once or twice before, I have had some trouble to try and figure it out. Okay, so there's the card done. I haven't put a sentiment on it yet, but I do later on. Okay, the card that I just did here, I think is the one with the sympathy message on it. This is the first one I did, the Mother's Day card. It's got some more purple on the little flowers on the top. Yeah, that's the one with deepest sympathy. That's the one I did. Yes, the centre, I actually used the Ranger Liquid Pearls in Daffodil colour just for the little dot in the centre of the flowers. And this is the ones, the blue one and the one underneath it, which I used the Perfect Pearls mixed with the water. Just use the water instead of the plain clean water. I actually used the Perfect Pearls mixed. So that's the 4 cards that I've actually done of this. 2 with the Perfect Pearls and 2 with the plain. So thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this, could you please subscribe and send me a message if you're looking at seeing more. Thank you. Bye.